Hey, everybody. So week 25. So we are on light. And, light, we think of divine light as an aspect of divine intelligence or the creative process. It's also associated with the intuitive mind, with movement, with healing, even with learning. But I would say light is how we keep our body from degenerating. The rate of degeneration in the body is dictated by the amount of light or the lack of light. And so, even when we have compromised areas or diseased areas in our body, part of what makes that degenerate at a much more faster rate um, is the lack of light. And so, light is associated with essence in the body. Light is tied to our physiological processes. Light is associated with consciousness, be it our higher aspects of consciousness or even the unconscious within the body. And all our body's processes are driven by the unconscious. So the unconscious is not just like some repressed part of the emotions or mind. It's tied to our biological processes, our physiology, the processes that keeps our body alive. It's also how we displace lower vibrational energies, what we would call conditioning or the experiences from the past. It's how we would diminish like entanglements with a person, a situation, even the tendency of being fixated on a situation or a person or just a way of thinking is tied to light. The idea of like how we think, that's a very hard thing to explain. I think somebody in Birmingham, I think it was Tracy, said, does it just mean like I used to like purple and now I like pink? And that's a very valid question. Like, what does that mean? Like, it improves or changes how we think. And it's not about the details, it's about a flow or a process. It would be the difference between being overwhelmed by an obstacle, procrastinating in the face of an obstacle, getting triggered by being in the presence of an obstacle, or the ability to problem solve that obstacle, and even further, to grow and evolve because of the obstacle. So at first, those things become very negative because they cause or increase our suffering. But as we shift the processes of how we think, not only does it diminish the potential for suffering, it increases our ability to become smarter, to grow, evolve, to innovate, and to evolve, and eventually even spiritualize. Light is very much associated with the intuitive mind. So you can't really say like it's for this symptom or that symptom, but you could say it's for maybe the vibration of the body, the emotion, the mind. It's about the physiology. It even ties into like our cognitive processes. If you look at the idea of enlightenment, for example, being realized or enlightenment, it's just really refined cognition, like your ability to cognitively process. but not just like, oh, I've accumulated a bunch of facts and look at how I can organize it or look at the details that I know about it. It's the ability to take in information and process it, apply it, and even let it take you to a place where just the exposure to the information expands a kind of awareness. It's like the idea of, like, if you show a good clairvoyant, like a true clairvoyant, like a picture, for example, they can sit and take a few minutes and they can see things in the picture, but that picture is like a portal or a doorway to that space, that time, that environment, and they can get in and then start looking around at things that are not even in that picture. When there's enough light in the mind, pieces of information do the same thing. Like the information will come in, and it's like all of a sudden it opens up all these doors or opens up a kind of access to pieces of information. That's why you see like sometimes like swamis or gurus or some sort of spiritual teacher, they get to a point where they don't really teach anything anymore. They just let the students ask questions. And in the questions, they expand on them quite substantially. But they don't necessarily have sat and memorized all that information. A lot of times they've never even thought about the question that gets asked. But in that moment where the question's asked, all of a sudden it opens up this realm of information because of the amount of light in their mind. So that's what we're trying to tackle here with this aspect of light. I like that it's right square in the middle. I don't know why. Probably some story in my head, but anyway. So you're going to pull out the blend mana, which is actually based on a very old anointing formula that is probably a couple thousand years old, you know, somewhere in that region. So we have the blend mana, and we're going to start with the standard approach. Your awareness is on the left side of the body, the side of the face and neck, the left shoulder, all the way down to the left outer ankle. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Mm. Now your awareness is on the front side, your face and throat, your chest, abdomen, front of your pelvis, down the fronts of your legs to the tops of your feet. You're doing nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Yeah. And then your awareness is on the right side of your body, right side of your face and neck, your right shoulder and ribs, your right hip, down the outer leg to the right outer ankle. And then the back side of the body, the whole back side, back of the head and neck, your whole back. your hips, down the backs of your legs to your heels. Hmm. That's a good one. It's funny, I just checked on it. No, but like I just checked on it like this morning. And then just pause. So this is the standard approach. And I mean, this is one of those ones that you could add to any condition, any emotional, mental issue, any spiritual issue. Like it is like adding salt and pepper to a meal. Like it just makes it a little better, or adding steroids to the body when there's inflammation. It just to reduce it that much faster. And so, be it a spiritual component, something that you're doing, if it's meditation, um, uh, I have a case that's like about this big that are like all the jewels that I find that are the jewels of, all the different classes through the years and everything. And, I kind of cherry pick like out of this class, this blend is amazing. And, I think there's only about a space in that case for about 100 oils. And so, like, if something goes in and it's full, so that means something has to leave. And let's just say mana has a very solid place in that case, you know. And so, you could add it to any stack, any other process that you're doing for healing. Um, I think sometimes something like this might fall to the wayside, because we don't really think of things outside of symptom oriented approaches. And even when we go, okay, I'm going to set that aside, it's still in the back of your head. But really, when you look at the idea of mystical healing versus even esoteric healing or just like normal ways that we look at healing or health from the mainstream way of doing things, the medical approach is, everything is a symptom and like what is causing that symptom? Oh, that's being caused by my gallbladder. This because is being caused by my liver. Or, if we get a little bit more away from a direct cause, we go, oh, maybe it's stress or maybe it's because of body posture and not just there's something wrong with that disc in my back or something like that. And when you look at the idea of mystical healing, I mean, I think the thing that I like about that approach is over the years, having done so many sessions and watched so many people and the patterns that they go through when they're healing, when their body's degenerating, when they're, going through life and the stresses and everything is the issues that we face and how we define it, like this symptom or that symptom, is us trying to make sense out of something, but we're not really taking in all the information. We're not taking in the account of the environment and stress and workloads and our interactions with people and conflicts that we might have with people. We're not looking at the collective unconscious and the things going on in the world. And is it Is it viruses that are floating around in a time where we don't really think about viruses? And, there's a lot of factors that we don't put in place, including our spiritual growth, our spiritual development, our resistances, karmic weights, the way our mind works, all of these things. You wouldn't think of the idea, for example, of even the mind and the repetitiveness of the mind and the stress thinking associated with the mind. You wouldn't think of it being associated with the organs of blood purification, but it's very much associated with the organs of blood purification. Um, when you step back and you just go, okay, I'm letting go of everything and I'm just going to observe, right? There's so much more information right in front of our nose that we look past because we have these preconceived ideas. And working with a blend like this, it produces results, but not in the way that the symptom oriented mind looks at something, but it produces results, especially when you kind of look a bit more big picture and you factor in more than just, you know, this is not what my body does. This, I wanted to go back to the way that it was. You look at your body in a phase of growing and evolving based on the things that you're going through, just like the emotions and the mind. And so I would say this is tied to a very different kind of healing, just as valid, but usually not very acknowledged. Not a lot of people have the awareness on like the full spectrum of healing. And you really have to have direct experiences with it. That's part of why a lot of times we do a process here and then we talk about it after the fact. It's you're having direct experiences with something and you're realizing, oh, this is what this is doing, where before your mind just is trying to conjure up an example of something and it doesn't really get it. So I don't know. I could keep going on, but let's go ahead and jump into the next part. So that standard approach, again, you could integrate it with any other um, uh, healing approach. If you're treating arthritis, if you're treating emotions, whatever it might be, that could be integrated and it could be integrated into any stack, or programming stack. So with that, let's go to the advanced approach. Your awareness is on the left side of the body, from the side of your face down the whole left side to the left outer ankle. The whole left side of the body. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And then the back side of the body. Your awareness is on the back side, back of the head and neck, your whole back, your hips, down the backs of the legs, all the way to the heels. The right side of the body, the whole right side. Right side of your face and neck, your right shoulder, ribs, your right hip, down the outer leg to the right outer ankle. And then the front side of the body, the whole front side, your face and throat, your chest, down the front side, down the fronts of the legs to the tops of your feet. And then pause and be still. You're inhaling again. Your awareness is on your knees, your whole knee or the back of your knee. Either way, your awareness is on your knees. Your awareness is on the ankles. Your awareness is on the soles of your feet. And then pause. You're just being still and letting go. How's that treating? That's beginning healing. Again, your awareness is on the left side of your body, the whole left side of your face and neck, your left shoulder, your left hip, down the outer leg to the left outer ankle. The front side of the body, your face and throat, chest, abdomen, all the way down to the tops of your feet. Right side of the body, side of your face and neck, your right shoulder and hip, down the outer leg to the right outer ankle. the back side of your body, back of your head and neck, your whole back, your hips, down the backs of your legs to your heels. And then pause. Pause and be still. Your awareness is on your brain. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the brain. Your spine. Your awareness is on your spine. Your brain and spine both at the same time. on the brain and soles of your feet. Awareness is on the brain and soles of the feet. As you inhale, raise your awareness up above the ankles. As you exhale, down into the earth. Then pause, pause, and let go. Hey, notice how you feel, your body, your emotions, your mind. And let's share experiences, ask questions. We'll do the work program for just a little bit, a few minutes. And then once we kind of covered those shares and questions, we'll jump into normal Q&A. So let's do org programming first, and then we'll do normal Q&A for the rest of the evening. So go ahead and fire away. How does that make you feel?
I'm in like la la land right now. Wow. You know, like I love every art program we do. And I'm like, no, this one I want to do with every other one. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Linda. You can just go ahead and unmute yourself tonight.
Hey, good evening.
Hey.
So, Mana was an oil that you recommended to me quite a while ago as something I should work with. And I did not realize that we were doing this evening. And this morning when I woke up, I thought, I'm going to do three brains with Mana. So, so I did that this morning with it. And then I saw the email today. I said, oh, going to do more Mana tonight. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Um,
How'd that treat you?
it's it was a very different Auric programming for me tonight. There was
Mhm.
a lot of just being in it, a lot of just letting it go, just letting, like, I don't even know how to exactly to describe it, but just like letting the light emanate through every pore.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I couldn't tell if it was coming or going or what was
Mhm.
happening, but it was just very, it was actually very invigorating. Like this is what
Mhm.
it's just
Oh
one of
yeah.
the first ones where I don't actually feel like I'm spacey or tired. And
Mhm.
on the heels of what we kind of touched on last week about exploring the I am that I am, and um, I really kind of had some breakthroughs in the last week around the idea of the life force that is I, that moves through each of us and creates all of these different forms and creates and creates and creates. And as you were talking about the light and what the light, you're trying to find words for what is the light. I was sensing that the light is the I. It's
Mhm.
creation. It's creation energy.
Yeah.
It's what it is. And it's all that we are. And if we just continue this work and clean and release all of the veils we have that hide that from our vision, then I kept getting thoughts about the great yogis, that they would say you would see them and they just look like light moving,
Mhm.
right? I thought, oh, that's maybe what we're, like Yogananda
Mhm.
talks about. It's like maybe
Yeah.
that's what this is all leading us to.
Yeah. I love everything you just said. Like, and the thing that I would say, it's, like you said, it's a little bit hard to describe, but in certain circles, they say things like, you know, I don't know, like the idea of being spiritual, for example, like, oh, I have a spiritual practice, or, that person's very spiritual. In certain circles, um, it's referred to as being spirited, like
Mm,
not necessarily spiritual, but spirited. And you take like the ability to like do something, or like in the face of difficulty, you put five people going through the same difficulty, and everybody's going to have a different ability to kind of get through that difficulty or that difficult time. And, out of the five, there might be one person who really is able to kind of really push through that difficulty for whatever reason, you know. And it doesn't have to do with being smart or lucky or whatever. It is that like being spirited, like, the light is there, and the light does make that person smart, but it's not because they went to school, or they studied a bunch of books or accumulated a bunch of information. And you hear about like old, like lamas or yogis, or teachers who really weren't educated at all. Like I mean, there are stories of these great teachers that didn't even know how to read or write. And somebody would come to them and ask them questions, and they would go on and on and on about the subject matter, but then the person would be like, well, what book did that come out of? And it's like, it's no book. And then they would say, I don't really know how to read or write. And, there's all these stories of like, well, how could you be so smart if you couldn't read or write? And it's like, the idea being that it's not about book smart. And, there was this one story where the teacher goes, well, you know how to read or write, and yet you came to me for wanting to know what's in this book and wanted me to explain within this book. And he goes, and then even my explanation, you still haven't really got it. Like you got exposed to it, but reading and writing has nothing to do with it. And it's that idea of being spirited or like, being a vessel of light or, whatever version of it, you wanna say. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. The more that we do things like this, the more I realize, like, as much as we've been talking about, like how much we see through the filter of the senses. And the more you get away from the senses, even for little bits and pieces at a time, you realize, like, God, like I was always looking through, the senses. Like how much did I really go beyond that into the unknown, into the mystery of life or who I am or greater mysteries or in the face of this difficulty, what does it really mean or what am I supposed to get out of it, whatever it might be. And I would say all of that's tied to a level or degree of light, or like you were saying, like the I and the I am.
Mm,
Yeah, I love what you said about that.
yeah. Well, thank you. It was a lovely journey this evening.
Good for you. Yeah, you have to let me know how that goes working with that. Sometimes in my mind's eye, both with mana and cataract, and mana and cataract they're both based on an old anointing oil, and there was two different like the proportions of things were very very different, but the plants or the herbs were the same. And so they're like two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
And it's the same plants, but the ratios are very different in both of them. And so that's why I didn't call it like some other cataract or some other mana. I named them two different things. But when every once in a while, like when I'll be inhaling them, like my eyes are closed and I can actually see like the descent of light, or like the light around me gets like, it's not even like a ball of light. It's almost like an ocean of light. Like I can
Mm.
just almost see the ocean of light. And then I go, oh, I can see the ocean of light. And then it goes away. Because I got it in my mind, like but it's just one of those things where I get these little flashes sometimes yeah. So you have to let me know how that goes for you.
I will, you bet.
And then go ahead, Denise, then Robert, and you can just unmute yourself.
Hey,
There
hey,
you go.
Dennis.
Perfect.
Hi. Well, I kind of have been kind of
Mhm.
angry, hurt today. So going into
Did
this,
something happen or what's going on?
yeah, yeah, it's again kind of tied with my son, and he destroyed another apartment, hotel. I'm sorry, a hotel.
Right.
And it's dealing with my ex-husband and his wife. They are really, you know, not only is he kind of in a psychotic break, they beat him up over it, and that's the hardest part for me. That is the absolute hardest part.
Mm.
Um, so, um, what I kind of felt like I got out of it is to kind of keep working with it, because it sort of will take me to the other side of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
And
it refines it a bit, or at
yeah,
least,
and you're dealing with a very difficult situation, and for whatever reason, those things are in motion. And there's your son's journey, there's their journey, and then
Yeah.
there's your journey. And I'd say, as much as you want to help the son and maybe temper the ex-husband, I would say be sure like your feet are under you before you start dealing with those situations. It will help you kind of process and deal with that. But also, when we try to manage the situation in a very external way, it's a quantitative action. And there usually is a back and forth. Like, it's a little bit more like this. Like you'll be
Mm.
bumping heads with somebody. And I know this is an easy thing to say and harder to put into motion, but the more that we practice the observation and the things that we talk about, and the more that we kind of find our center in those times, in those situations, the more it becomes a qualitative action. And qualitative action can eventually cause a shift that is much more significant than its like quantitative measure. So it's like basically you're being an example, or you're being this like beacon of light or vessel of light.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that you don't have to make choices and do things, but it's like it comes from a different place. Like sometimes the decisions will be made and they look the same, but like you're coming at such a different place. It's that idea of it's not so much what you said, it's how you said it, like
Yes.
it's that essence that, we all kind of know what that is. And we usually know it a little bit more when it's like a little bit negative, but
Man.
whatever the reason, whatever the things that are in motion, whatever things are in play, to kind of be like that vessel of light. And doesn't mean avoid anything, and it doesn't mean like, okay, that means I'm just going to be a vessel and not do anything. But you know your son has the difficulty, but so does the ex. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He doesn't have a diagnosis, and he might not be considered like a kind of mental illness. But as far as we look at it as being, um, like a genuine human being, or like, we all have our struggles with it. And he's going through some struggle as much as the son is. The son has a diagnosis and he doesn't. And I would say sometimes, I don't know. Like I
Thank
think about it for myself. It's like, oh, if something had defined, at least I knew I had to work on something, like when I was younger. And when you don't have like that thing like your son does, you just think, I'm awesome. Like everything I think is awesome and right. And I had this acquaintance one time that he would have really weird things come up in his head. And he would come up and he'd go, I know, like, for example, he'd go, I know you guys are talking about me. And we'd go, We weren't talking about you. Like, we weren't talking about you at all. Like, you weren't a subject or anything." And he'd go, well, why did it come up in my mind?
Mm.
And I was like, I don't know. You're getting triggered by your past. And I go, trust me, if I had a problem with you, I have no problem saying it directly to your face. I have no problem with that at all. Like, but we all have these like kind of ways of thinking and conditioning that we're working our way through. And the more that light is present in these situations, the more that the thought processes, the way of thinking, and the way things play out are going to break out of repetition and be something new or different. sometimes it's not on the timeline that we like, but if you look at even the idea of like blessing situations or praying for situations or just coming up with new ideas, trying to be spontaneous. It's trying to break out of some sort of repetition there. And here from the point of view of what we're doing tonight, it's that essence is light, you know.
Mm.
And
Thank
so
you.
the more that you can bring a light into the situation, and it doesn't mean you don't have to set aside all the ways of doing something, but you just have like a little bit of a different perspective, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's
Here's the big thing that I would say about that for myself. I don't know if this helps you, but for myself, I had a tremendous aha moment when I realized that all of that stuff wasn't because of me.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't like he's doing this because of this doesn't sound quite like that for you, but still like you know take your ex-husband out of that situation and put him in a different situation, he would behave the same way. You know what I mean? If it wasn't your son and it was like, somebody else, he would probably behave the same way, or very similar. And I had this realization one time. It's a weird way to say it, but this is how I realized it. I was like, if I was out swimming in the ocean and I got bit by a shark in the 70s, I was very fixated on being bit by a shark because of right. So like I had a lot of jaws oriented thinking. And I- it's like, oh, why did this happen? Why did it happen to me? You know, the shark was being mean or whatever, was being a predator or whatever. You have whatever stories in your head. And I just had this realization like if that happened, it's not because he hated me. I just was in front of him. Like that's
Mm.
it. I was just in front of him. It didn't matter who it was in front of him. He was going to still behave the same way. And part of that realization is like I need to be able to recognize situations and not be standing in front of the shark to get bitten,
Mm.
because he's going to bite. Like that's his nature. He's going to bite. If you're in his vicinity, you're food. And you know what I mean? And
I
I
do.
mean, it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but it was such a big aha moment for me that there's just times where I was like, oh, I'm not going to interact with that person. I won't be shark food, whatever it is. And
The realization it's not personal.
yeah,
It is their nature. It's right in the nature
it's
of
their
who they are.
nature, and for whatever reason, they're working through something. And as much as you say pieces of information and try to convince them, you know. They're still going to behave the way they're going to behave. It's usually, I was just having a conversation with a friend, and they were asking about like why does this happen or what does that happen, and it's they said this and then I said that. They were kind of doing that, some version of that, and it's more about behaviors and tendencies than it is about words and facts and ideas and presentation. And it's really about behavior and tendencies. It's almost like these chemical reactions. If you put these chemicals in place, they have a certain reaction.
Yeah.
And, you know, your son is your son, your ex is your ex. And, the only chance of them breaking out of that repetition is some sort of spontaneous action that happens in that, which is a byproduct of light. It's a
Mm.
byproduct of intuition. It's a byproduct of light. It's a byproduct of clairvoyance, however you want to say it.
Thank you. Very, very helpful and so kind.
Yeah, well, so I know it's frustrating. I know it's a difficult situation.
Oh, it was beautiful. Thank you for your
Yeah,
help tonight.
good.
I appreciate it so
Good.
much.
Keep inhaling the soil. See if it helps. Like, you do the order program, but even just sit and how we do the thing where we observe a person or a situation or a past event, observe the dynamic between the two of them, observe the X, observe the sun, and like observe it for a while, concentrate, and then start inhaling the mana and see if that does something for you.
I will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then go ahead, Robert, and then we'll do any shares for the ARC program.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Greg. I I always read the newsletters and stuff like that, and the one that came out about our programming today, just like always, it said everyone's experience is different, and for some reason, that sort of stuck with me.
Mhm.
So I had a little bit of what Sam said about that, being tired and relaxed and calming me down, and I had a little bit of what Linda was talking about, but not exactly.
Mhm.
And I didn't recognize any of this until Linda started talking. And it was this, I got a glimpse of what went on during the oil that I didn't recognize during it. It was uh, you know how in especially Disney movies, they have characters who have wands and light comes out of the end of the wand? Well, rather than a wand, it was my hand, and I was guiding the energy, almost like crafting it.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Yeah.
uh, you know, and what you said to Linda about wasn't about manifestation, but you need light to create. Uh,
Right. Right.
it,
Creative
it's
flow. Yeah.
yeah, the words that came to me initially was manifestation, but
Right.
that's what you said. It's more about molding and creating the energy.
Right.
I don't know at this moment what I was molding and creating, or if I was just playing with it to get
Or
the
that it was maybe just the potential, because I would say even that's a kind of realization, because like that's the thing that I find so interesting about the materialization process of, be it the last weekend or just how we do the materialization breathing, where it's materializing light is, it's so tied to that creative flow and that creative process. And without it, we have the intellect that is repetitive and maintaining, and in the body we have homeostasis. But even in these situations, like how Denise was talking about the dynamic between the father and son, and like you could see that there's a lot of repetition there, and in a way it kind of even maintains itself. And without the introduction of some sort of light or some sort of creative process, because the creative process, like if you threw out the idea of light, is to go beyond the parameters of like your senses, or go out of like the normal repetitive expected behavior, and you go, okay, I'm going to be an innovator and I'm going to step outside this realm and I'm going to do
step
something
out of the
different, and
box.
whatever that is. And that would be symbolized as like, using light to manipulate, or like a wand to manipulate, because at first we're waking up to like, light. But then when we go through and we refine, which we are doing in the materialization process, like as you go through and do that, your will is being refined to be more driven by the spiritual will than the mental, emotional, or the physical will. And at some point, there's the light is present, but the will becomes refined enough to where you can start directing the light to produce specific kinds of results. At first it's in the thoughts and the emotions, but eventually the light begins to be able to manipulate matter. So even the idea of healing, at first we're going through and say you're projecting a bunch of energy, you're kind of hitting the body's processes and everything. But at some point, when the light gets strong enough and it gets refined enough, it can go into the physical form and actually change the form, the form itself. At first it's just the dance between the physiology and the form and whatever. But, I would say like forms of times when like miracles happen, it's the light is so intense and so refined that it actually will change the form.
How does this process relate to a mystical tool like a dorje?
It's an oil version of doing the dorjes. Yeah,
Okay.
especially the dorje.
Okay.
Yeah, like I would say, you know, like by the time we get to the Auric program, like we have the Sandalphon technique, which is really like the physical blockages. It's the quality of the form itself, and not just the quality, but the rigidity or or flexibility within the form, right? And then we come to the next phase. I don't remember the name of the class, but it's the one with all the blood, the alchemical blood. Um, that's more of like the quality of the physiology. It's breaking the physiology out of repetition and maintenance and allowing the physiology to adapt and grow and evolve and heal and all of that. And then we do the next phase where it was the alchemical directions, the directions and the alchemical directions. And there it starts to be like the ability to start kind of directing the form and the essence or the physiology. So it starts to be like cognition and cognitive abilities, like the ability to start learning how to direct it. And all of those are, be it how good or how bad they are, eventually become what we call the auric program. So in the aura, it's the programs are almost like these like little globules of things in the aura that are constantly pulling your physiology and your body and your mind and making things behave in a particular way and cause like a kind of repetition themselves, but it's a byproduct of those three other things. And then it's there. And so, you change something in the body and then eventually, bam, it's back again. And you're breaking up or disconnecting from those thought forms, because they're really more like thought forms or like patterns. And you're starting to disengage those patterns so that the aura becomes more spontaneous and eventually becomes, eventually more, intuition being more of light rather than dark, which is just dirty gray energy, becomes more of light, which is like when we did the intuitive classes with all the Jungian stuff. And then eventually we did the soul rays, right? And so then it really, like if you can process and get to those points, then the aura is like I'm swimming in an ocean of light. I'm surrounded by the ball of light. I'm driven by essence rather than form. And it's that idea of like waking up or starting to become a little realized or a little enlightened is really all that is breaking away from the perception and the fixation of the form and beginning to give value and awareness and perception to essence. The form is still there, but it doesn't get to be 99% of our perception and consuming the mind. It starts to kind of get to this place of like a 50-50, I don't know if that's the percentage, but and in that, your ability to start directing and manifesting something becomes incredibly heightened. So it makes you a better healer. It makes you more innovative in your industry. It makes your body heal a little bit better. It makes all these different things kind of happen. You're a little bit more dynamic when you're interacting with people. And when bad things are happening around you, you don't quite have the reaction that you normally would. And because like when bad something happens, I always find this to be the big indicator is like not only do like you not be reactive, but a lot of times when bad things happen, it pulls us from who we are, and we kind of get wrapped up in what it is, and trying to problem solve that, we kind of lose ourselves a little bit, like the general population. And for us to be able to be in a place to where like, yes, that bad thing is happening, but at the same time, I'm still who I am. How am I going to resolve this? How am I going to learn from this? How am I going to innovate from this and not stop being me, like my true me? Right. And so I would say that idea of seeing the ability to like light coming out of your hand or like out of a wand, um, is like realizing that we're the captain of our own ship, and uh I don't know. I always like when I was younger, I always thought I'm the parent of my brain. They're my parents were my parents for like raising me when I was a little kid. But as I'm older, I'm the parent of my brain. Like if I'm gonna be intuitive, it's because I put in good parenting skills with my mind. And if I don't, it's because I had bad parenting skills with my mind or whatever. And I don't know, it's a very simplified way of looking at it, but it's a different aspect of like saying what you're saying there. Like, I love that you
Right.
had that visual.
Yeah, and it was only because Linda said something. It's what
Hmm.
triggered in a good way, like recalled the memory of what
But
had
if you even think
experienced.
about what we were just saying about light, it's like a piece of information is presented, and then oh, all of a
Yes,
sudden there's access to this information where, like you said, had Linda not said something, the potential was there, but there wasn't the awakening of that piece of realization or whatever that might be.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you very much. This was
Yeah, good
an
for you.
enlightening, fun day.
Yeah, super good for you.
I absolutely love all those shares, and I just want to just kind of piggyback on both of them too, because in the process, like my mind in like almost a dream state was like seeing these possibilities and possibilities. And so what you guys have been chatting and sharing about, I'm like, yeah,
Right.
that was in this short little process, like part
Nice.
of the experience.
Nice, nice.
That's very cool. Okay, so that will complete, let me just make sure, but I believe that will complete the ARC programming for tonight. That was a great one. And next week is the limbic system. So we're
Ooh,
using
nice.
Splendor.
Yeah.
So that'll be super fun. All right, and now we will get into our regular Q&A now. And I just want to kind of make sure everyone knows I did a little new thing. I made it so anyone could post in the main chat your shares or your questions. I just want to make sure you know, though, everyone sees those. If you want to send a message that's private, you do have to do it as a new chat, which is that new blue button in the chat. Looks like a blue square or a blue circle. You click on that and you do need to send it over to Plant Prana Oils or to Apothecary's Ghee. So I just kind of wanted to make sure everyone knew that, so can get going. But we do the people whose hands are raised first, and then we do the chat shares and questions, regular Q&A. So go ahead, Heather, start us off, then Ralph.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Good. You?
Doing very good.
Excellent. Well, I don't have any update on my dog because other things happened that needed to be taken care of. It's like one thing after another. So I will get back to his gut at a later
Okay.
time. But
Okay.
actually a question on that. The German chamomile, I did not get any capsules, but I have dried German chamomile flowers. Can
Oh,
that be used in any way?
yeah, yeah.
What about fresh chamomile flowers?
I think that would be okay. Yeah,
Okay, because I already gave him a few fresh ones. It didn't seem
yeah. Well,
like
there you go.
it bothered him.
Yeah,
So, okay,
yeah.
I'll just kind of throw
I
that
mean,
one.
there's some like dog treats that they do for like separation anxiety. I don't know if they still make them, but they used to put in lavender and Roman chamomile in the dog
Okay.
treats. And so, I would say German probably has a little bit stronger effect on um, the reduction of anxiety, and German's a little bit better for cleaning up inflammation and cleaning up like metabolic wastes and things like that. And so
Okay.
I would say either version would work.
Okay. Well, I'll try that then. Yeah, he you don't need the details, but we'll get back to the gut issue soon. Um,
Okay.
the question, let's see, I have a couple of things.
Hmm.
Just clarification, because when we invoke for pranic healing,
Hmm.
we're um, asking the supreme God. Would that be equivalent to the Lord Jesus Christ?
The Lord Jesus Christ would be a manifestation of the supreme God. So
Okay.
there's kind of two pathways of like looking at these things. And I would say that how Christ says, like, I and the Father am one.
Mm-hmm.
That's still like even beyond the the Father, there is still an aspect of God that's even
Mm-hmm.
beyond that. And so Christ would be a manifestation of that. But then on the flip side, the thing that I would say is that it's probably easier to access that aspect of God by invoking or being devotional to like Christ, or if you're in a different tradition, to whatever that tradition is, because like
Mm-hmm.
you have like a greater connection to it. It's like the idea of the supreme God, there's no real image of that. And so it's harder for the
Yeah.
mind to perceive that. You know what I mean? So that's
Okay.
the purpose of these great, avatars and messiahs and bodhisattvas and whatever is to connect to something bigger, but you almost like kind of do it by focusing on them, and eventually, it's even kind of like how I was saying with Robert, like you put your mind on something and then something expands, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
same idea. You focus on Christ, and at some point you start to feel more of the essence rather than the form of Christ. And then you begin to expand even on something that is coming through Christ. Like you
Mm.
can almost say like Christ is, and I would say this about it, any of the spiritual elders. They're like a portal to the supreme God. They're a
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of the supreme God.
I see. Now,
Yeah.
so then in the invocation, I'm not specifically saying the Lord Jesus Christ, but if I were
But
to start
if
adding it
that's,
in,
yeah, I
I
would
mean,
add
are
it
you
in
kind
for
of
yourself.
saying I could add it in, I don't
I
need
would
to because
totally
it's
add it in.
covered?
I
And
would
then where would be the hierarchy?
I wouldn't get super caught up in all of that.
Okay,
Like
get it in there high up.
yeah, I would
Just
say even if you were just super devotional to Christ,
mhm.
the rest would fall into place.
Okay.
So like you know
Yep.
the more that you're opening yourself up to something divine. Like the invocation is kind of an intellectual process. The more important part is to genuinely connect. And
Got
I
it.
would make it more about the connection to something than following like a template of something.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Okay. Yeah, because in my healing room, I have the pranic healing image, and I think we refer to him as like Bar Miriam or something.
Oh, yeah.
Forgive me
Mhm.
for if I'm butchering
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what I use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
okay, all right. Next thing for oils, I've
Hmm.
never really made an ointment, and
Hmm.
I know you put it in every single class. It's in the first pages. I probably could reference that, but I thought it easiest just to ask you.
Yeah.
To mix the two things that I have is like tarragon and tamanu. Am I saying that right?
Correct. So you would
Okay.
use like for every ounce, so an ointment is different than like a massage oil or something, even though it might
Okay.
be made out of the same things, the ratio is different. So like if
Yeah.
you're just getting a general massage or something and you're going, I want it with tamanu and I want it with tarragon, you might do, 30 or 40 drops to 4 ounces of tamanu oil. An ointment would be 25 or 30 drops to 1 ounce. So that is for like a spot treatment, like if you're doing your elbow or your lower abdomen or wherever you want to do it, the amount of oil is increased in the carrier oil. And so usually about 25 to 30 drops.
So if I am understanding you correctly, for the tarragon, I'm doing like 25 to 30 of the tarragon in
It,
1 ounce of
of
the
tamanu.
tamanu.
Correct.
Okay. And then that consists, that's it, the ointment. I don't need
Then
anything
that's an
else.
ointment, right?
Okay.
So it's
So
a
it's
much
just,
stronger version of like a lotion or like a massage oil or something, even though the carriers might be the same, the ratio is different. Ointments are made for more like spot treatments rather than like a whole body thing. And so,
that was it. Spot treatment. Okay. I was like,
yes,
what really is the difference then? Spot
yeah,
treatment.
it's when
Perfect.
you're wanting to really be specific to an area.
Excellent. Excellent. I think I've got one more for you, Greg.
Sure.
Say like in someone's sinuses or nasal passageways, whatever, like the ones that are kind of under the eye and the face there.
Mhm.
If someone has, I forget what type of scan they have, and it's showing that they're more narrow than, we'll just say, the average person.
Like in the sinuses in here, like
Uh,
in here.
yes, yes. I'm wondering, well, my thought is, well, let's try some pranic healing for that. My question is, have you ever done any pranic healing on that? Know that it works? Have any suggestions? Because I think
For
I think
things
it's
like that,
something that can be
I
done to help someone breathe better.
yeah, like if there's a structural issue, like if it's structurally like just that's the way that area is, you're
Hmm.
not going to really change that a whole bunch. But if it's a lot of impact, like impacted mucus, or if there's like inflamed lining or polyps. Usually I use like rosemary or like basil,
Hmm.
red myrtle, or like a nula, and have them
Okay.
inhale it quite a bit so that they can really start to shift all of that. But if there's an anatomical like anomaly, the form, the structure isn't really going to change very much. You're
Oh,
basically
okay.
trying to make that area function better with the anomaly, whatever that is.
Yeah, because it's all like tissue and whatnot. I was
Mhm.
hoping there's a chance you can expand the tissue so that it's
Depends
wider.
if it's structural or if it's like because of like how the physiology
Ooh.
is working. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back to the person and double check.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Maybe there's hope, or rosemary, or basil, or red
Yeah.
myrtle. Very good. Okay, well, that's all I can think of for now. I thank you
Okay.
so much,
You're
Greg.
so welcome.
All right, be well.
And then go ahead, Ralph, then Lolly.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg. Well, I finished up my 2-week course of chemotherapy for my skin cancers today, so I'm doing pretty good at the moment.
Good. And how's the body feeling?
The body itself is doing very well. The face, I look like I got the world's worst case of poison oak right now.
Right.
So, what I'm really interested in, my question for the evening is I want to make sure that my body is in the greatest healing state possible to come out of this.
Your body looks like it's in a pretty good state. I would spend time on the liver.
Okay.
Like that's
Um,
the thing that I like if I was like to go through like, okay, if I made a list, liver would be the very first thing I would tackle.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
And so it can be like we talked about the liver vagal tone a couple of weeks ago, but also like
mhm.
helichrysum can be supportive. Peppermint even can start like a detoxification process. But I like the idea also of like a lemon is a little bit more of a long-term like treatment. It won't be fast, but it will have an impact. Carrot seed, rosemary, verbenone, always super good for the liver. But hyssop decumbens, which is different than the other hyssops. It does have a different chemistry, like when you break it down and have it analyzed.
Yeah.
Um, Regular hyssop kind of will do this, but the hyssop decumbens like jump starts like secretions in the liver. And I would say play with different parts of the liver, like, not so much like you're treating like a particular symptom, but just kind of keep going back and forth with just liver function. And, you remember there was that free class where we did like just the 2 days on just the digestive system back like about a month ago or something.
Yes.
There's several little like uh
Subsections.
yeah, that were just about the liver. Even if you don't have some of the symptoms, I would still play with some of those things in the liver just to produce like a very good result with the liver function. You know?
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So I've been enjoying doing the Angelic Encyclopedia segment 1, which is where we just pick an angel blend and go through the
Hmm.
first section.
Hmm.
Um, so if I do that segment 1 and I start out by doing a little bit of vagal tone body tonic,
Hmm.
and then we did the mana for the Auric and somatic tonight.
Hmm.
And then after that, then go through and do this section 1. Um, that's striking me right now as being something that might be very beneficial.
Pretty nice, like pretty nice. After you do it, you could then put your awareness on the areas that are a bit compromised because of the chemo.
Hmm.
Um, your liver, you always want to look at digestion, do you have any nausea at all or loss of
No,
appetite
no,
or
my appetite hasn't changed since I started
beautiful.
the
Okay.
past 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
that's good.
So in the Auric programming too, like the nerve help, use like
Okay.
nerve help and do the
The
program
lo-
and then direct it also in the body. Like I would even throw nerve help, which is for the nervous system, directly at like inhale it directly onto the liver.
Okay.
Just keep inhaling it into the liver because part of the chemo is that it does hit the nervous system and you kind of want to regenerate the nervous system so that, it gets a little compromised because of what they're trying to eradicate, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to let it stay that way. Like it's just a byproduct of the treatment. It's not the reason for the treatment.
Yeah.
And so hit that too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
I would say also, how we do the body awareness.
Hmm.
Like I would say, be it on the skin, on the sites, or on the liver, or if something else arose in the body, work with the angel we worked with last night, Sabriel. Like
Hmm.
use Sabriel, you could use Raphael, you could use Sophiel. You could
Okay.
use Sophiel too. And direct it into those areas like you practice body awareness and then inhale the angels. The other thing that I would say is you could do that same practice where you observe the body and, whatever areas arise in your mind or where you observe. You could also do Om Mani Padme Hum.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll
Keep
let you
me
know how it's
posted.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, keep me posted.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure I clarify with the application for the oils like the liver, vagal tone, the helichrysum, lemon, carrot seed, rosemary, verbenone. Would those be internal or would they be inhalation?
You could do inhalation. I would probably do a little bit of it internally and a bit, sustained inhalation, even topical. Like I would throw everything at it, but depends on how much you have of everything. If you only have a little bit, then just do inhalation.
Okay. All right. The
Yeah.
only thing that I'm not curious, that I don't know 100% about right now is decombens. And I may add that to the order.
Yeah, you,
I
you
may
might
add
have it
that to
in
the
like a
order that I sent in today.
yeah, you might have it in a really old kit or something.
Yeah, I think it's only been in like one kit.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just to make sure everybody knows with the hyssops, only inhalation or
Yeah.
topical.
Yeah. Yeah. The only exception is decumbens.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. But otherwise, don't take a hyssop internally. But decumbens, you can actually do that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't ever talk about that because I don't want people to get confused. But this is a special situation.
And dig that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Catch you later.
Okay.
And then go ahead, Lolly, then Megan.
Hey, how are you?
You can just automatically unmute yourself today. You don't even need me. Yeah.
Hi. Okay,
Mhm.
sorry about that. I'm good. The Auric programming was really cool. I was completely out, and some things came up. I don't even understand them, so it was good and needed. So thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay, let's see a few things. Okay, so an oil question. We talk about it a few times, the difference between black seed oil and black cumin. Because I've been taking black cumin for a while. I just recently kind of shifted to doing I've been taking black cumin for a while. Now I kind of just shifted to doing black seed oil, the spagyric tincture. And I'm wondering if there's an essential oil of the black seed oil and what would be the
Black seed and black cumin are so close that they're pretty interchangeable. Yeah.
So they would actually do the exact same thing.
Yeah, they're pretty similar. Yeah.
So basically no specific essential oil for the black
No.
seed.
No. Uh,
Okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to double check because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So the effect on
Even,
inflammation in the
even
body.
like when I was making the tincture, like I was like, well, we already have black cumin. I'm gonna do it with black seed, and then I just mixed them together. you know, for
Okay.
the spagyric, because they're so similar.
Okay. So yeah, I wasn't sure, so I was like, let's just double check. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that, so basically, and if I'm taking one, I don't need to take the other.
No.
Okay. So yeah, just because I've been on black cumin for a while, I'm kind of switching.
Sure.
So that was one thing. And then another oil question is oregano. I don't think we talk about oregano a lot. And I mean, sometimes it's used as like a natural antibiotic in a way. How do you like that? Like if I'm comparing that to like something like, I don't know, golden seal, for example, or
Different. I mean, golden seal's a little bit more. It does stimulate the the immune response, and it is a very good lymphatic stimulant. Um, Oregano stimulates the immune response, but I'd say the area that it kind of impacts is it brings tone to the sympathetic nerves. And you know how we're always talking about like vagal tone. Sometimes there's an issue, especially when a person's been um, sympathetic nervous system dominant, that you have to do like tone up that nerve a little bit. It's like it's exhausted or run down. And so oregano is actually quite good for that. So is Ravensara, you know, or Ravensara, you know, the one without the T. Um, and there's one other oil. I'd have to look it up. But I don't talk about oregano very much. I do have it in some blends.
yeah.
But you know, the ratio is usually much lower. You know, it is good for energy. It's good for kind of cleaning things up. It does stimulate the healing process, but there's a lot of heat there. And if people overuse it, they tend to develop irritation down around the navel area. And so, you know, if people don't dilute it enough or they take excessive amounts, it could be a little bit hard on the stomach. And you know, in some circles, you know, one of the circles that you're in, they push like oregano, and people were coming to me for healing all the time because they were having this like stomach irritation. And I was like, why are all these people from this group
Okay.
coming to me with that? And then I started asking them questions, and that's what it was they were taking oregano for the energetic effect. And oregano is very good at what it does, but you gotta respect it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's potent, it's strong, it has a lot of heat, and I usually give it to individuals. I don't really usually talk about it a lot in general. Um, so that I know that people, I mean, the reason I do that is so that I make sure that they use it in a way that's going to be effective and efficient
Yeah.
and not cause any disturbances. And so a lot of times I have it in a blend.
Yeah, I think it's even in the adrenal support a
Yeah,
little bit. Yeah.
it's great for the adrenals, you know,
Yeah.
because it tones up that nerve. But the ratio compared to everything else is it's just like a skosh, a little
Yeah.
pinch. You know, it's just you know, and you know that blend is very good for elevating energy levels, and especially in times of fatigue. And the oregano is good for that, but it's good when blended with other things. Yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
yeah, and I guess even when they do have it in various places when it's diluted so much, so it's never
It's
really
diluted
mixed.
already, usually in olive oil or
Yeah.
sometimes seen it in coconut oil, but even there, you can take too much.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, like I've again had a few people where they were taking too much of it. You know,
Okay. Yeah, and I was wondering about that. So okay, so thank you.
yeah.
And then just
Because you know, here's the interesting thing. Cinnamon is hot, savory
yeah.
is hot. Savory smells and behaves a lot like oregano, but it doesn't quite have thing that if you overuse it, where it generates that heat down in the
Mhm.
lower abdomen. And so, it's not doing damage, but it is causing irritation. And so,
Mhm.
like a lot of times, if I can do it a different way, I usually do.
Okay.
Unless, I'm talking to somebody specifically, I give them very specific instructions, and then,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then just to follow up on all my, crazy little things. So I mentioned that I had a situation with my gums and my teeth last week.
Mhm.
It ended up getting worse. And then the thing that really ended up working well was what you said, which is the turmeric.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, so because I have the oil, and so I ended up working with that like towards my jaw and on the teeth. And I even did I mean I've been working with clove and turmeric. I also did myrrh, and then I ended up even doing three wise men on
Oh,
there.
yeah. Yeah.
Finally yesterday it got somewhat better, and I saw the doctor again today because I was like, it's almost 2 weeks, it's crazy. She said she doesn't think it's a nerve. She kind of fixed the feeling. I guess it was too thick,
Hmm.
and hopefully that's gonna resolve that. She's like, don't do anything, just salt water, whatever, and like oil pulling. And the oil pulling also been helpful. I think it feels better. I think that might have
Good.
been it. Um, I don't know if there's something else that you see that I'm missing, because again, I'm like, I don't know why my body is, because in addition to that, also my eyes been acting up a little bit again in the last few days.
Mm.
So I don't know if there's something again in the body that's not healing properly, or if it's again the eyes related to the liver, if it's overall my stress level. I don't know. Stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even though you're not there.
I'm really good at pretending it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Um,
But even though you're not back home, it's a little crazy back there.
yeah, it's and it got
I'm not
somewhat,
from Israel, and I have a little bit of stress about it.
yeah, and
You know
and
what
I
I
real
mean? Like I can
yeah,
imagine if I came from there.
and I realized that I'm really good in like telling myself that I'm not stressed out, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But think of it,
Um,
it's not your mind and your emotions, it's your body.
it's the body. Yeah.
And your body doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel secure, even though
Mm-hmm.
you're not back there.
Yeah.
You still have a connection back there and you still have family back there. It doesn't feel safe, it feels chaotic, it doesn't feel secure, it doesn't feel like it's on guard. It's very
Mm-hmm.
much on guard. I mean, I will say though, it's still better than it was, I don't know, six months ago or whatever, but like
Yeah.
it's still keep moving in that direction. Like, like you say, it's been more than just the recent things. It's been like, the last 20 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
And it takes some time of unwinding.
So then, because really what freaked me out was that again, the eyes are like, I thought I
Yeah.
was somewhat done. And so then what? Is there anything else I'm missing or change it? Should I change any of the things I'm doing?
No,
Or,
just unwind stress. The thing that I would probably do, like if you wanted to go back and revisit an old class, is either the vagal tone that we just did or that cultivating the mystic heart where we broke down the different parts of the nervous system.
okay,
Both of those would be really good for you.
okay. And then,
Because another way of saying vagal tone is anti-stress,
mhm.
you
And
know.
then really working on the different parts of the vagal tone, not just the liver,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then still keep doing the other things to kind of, so
Yeah,
it's
I mean, you're trying to treat symptoms. I mean, it would depend on the individual. Like, I kind of do like what you're doing, where I do like vagal tone, or I do that cultivating the mystic heart.
mm-hmm.
I do that a lot. Like,
Yeah.
just especially for me, I do work the somatic nerves quite a bit. And you know, it's just because of I've had a bunch of injuries. So like that
Yeah.
part of my nervous system's pretty jacked up. And it's much better than it used to be, but I was pretty mean to it when I was young. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
And I
I don't
think I
have
think
the
that's
excuse of like, hey, these things are happening in my thing. I went out and, you know, did stuff to myself. Like, you know, I hurt my body in a lot of ways I shouldn't have.
mm-hmm.
And so you know, I'll still treat the symptoms, but I still
Mm-hmm.
try to treat like the nervous system, especially
Yeah.
to try to unwind it more. And you know, um, it's helpful. Sometimes I'll let go of the symptoms for a little bit and just focus on, but I usually kind of just keep doing things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I keep on alternating the things I'm taking internally and the other oils that I'm working with the
Mhm.
different processes. And yeah. And okay.
I would say for you, I would explore that from the mystic heart, you know, cultivating. That's what it was called, cultivating the mystic heart.
Yeah.
Is do explore the somatic nervous system. You know, the
Yeah.
somatic equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
And because it's tied to body armoring. You know, when your body doesn't feel safe, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like it's fight, flight, and vagal tone, but the somatic nerves kind of go, ugh.
Yeah.
And you know, because that's my issue. Like, oh, I know that one really well. And it's much better than it was, but like still my body, because of all the crashes and stuff, my body was always you know, on guard kind of. And the more I unwind that, the more the symptoms dissipate. They dissipate easier, even if they rise up.
Mm-hmm.
uh, like I twisted and did something, like I was picking something up and I twisted and I wrenched my back just a little bit, like about 5 days ago. And like right now, I'm symptom free.
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, that would have been a 3 or 4 month process. I'm not joking. Like for the way that it was hurt, it would have taken
Mm-hmm.
me months to get over it. You
Yeah.
know, I would have gotten a little bit better, but I would have been managing it for a long time. But all that work with the nervous system, it it changed something so that your body responds and breaks out of those patterns much, much, much quicker.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yes, I'll explore that as well. Okay. Thank you. And then with and symptom wise, should I do the liver vagal tone internally as well, you think?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's liver needs help.
No, okay.
Everybody. Yeah.
And the other one that I don't know if I think it was this morning. Sometimes I have like, oils that I haven't touched in a little bit, and I'm like, oh, it feels like I need that. Liberation, is that I don't know why this
Yeah,
or is it
so that
too
would be good for treating immune system issues. That would be good for strengthening the body. But like
right?
the reason it's called liberation is helps you to like you know, step out of the box, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you could try it. I don't know how much it's going to help, but you could try it.
And I took a break, and then all of a sudden it kind of, not sure why it came up to me again. And I mean, I like
Sure.
cinnamon
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyway, but okay. So
Yeah, yeah.
so I'll try that again, and yeah, and I'll revisit the other classes. Thank you. But yeah, but the turmeric, really, that was such a great, I wouldn't even
Yeah.
really think about that.
Yeah.
That really made a difference. So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Even though
thank
it's feeling better, keep doing it for a while.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah,
even
yeah.
add that when I do the salt, when I do the water
Perfect.
and salt the washes, and I add that as well. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Megan, and we have some chat question.
Hey, Megan.
Hey. So my son Arian, he's almost 13. He, but has been having this really since he was a kid where he just gets these little like skin breakouts on his face and they're just like skin colored bumps. But it's just been there
Like
for
their
a
little tiny
while.
bumps.
Yeah, they're just like skin colored. I don't think it's acne. He would have it when he was a little kid too. It would just kind of
But
come
there's
and
like a
go.
little patch of them.
No, like scattered all over his cheeks.
Mm. Does anything turn red?
No,
And it's not acne.
no. I mean, he's had it since he was
And
like
they're
a kindergarten.
but
Yeah.
they're tiny. They're real tiny.
Yeah, they're pretty small.
Yeah. Usually that's a byproduct of something going on in the digestive system.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He's
Yeah.
tense, like we've talked about. So I was gonna see if
Yeah.
there's something easy that could just.
So I would throw like something at it like that's a little bit of a curveball. And I would throw geranium at it, but internal. And the reason why I think that is that like geranium can be good for like things like irritable bowel syndrome and other things like, but what I would say is that part of why it works for irritable bowel is that it takes tension out of the digestive tract. And I would say that his functional issue is more of probably tension there than it is, and you think about the struggles that he has with like school and things like that. A lot of that will manifest in the gut, especially down in the lower gut as he gets older.
Yeah.
And so I would say start giving him just like a little drop or two of geranium, any kind of geranium,
Okay.
drop or two, in water. Like, and it doesn't even have to be every day, but I do that from time to time, and I'm always like, oh God, this feels so good. And the thing is geranium is a lot more cleansing than you would think. Like it's a lot more cleansing than you would think. So you're getting an energetic benefit of it, and you're taking that tension out. And so rose, regular geranium, Egyptian geranium, just whatever you got. Just little, like, just a drop or two from time to time and see if that doesn't clear that up. It won't do it immediately, but I would say over a period of time. I mean, anytime you have something like that, you could also like work on the lymph in the gut. And
Hmm.
and so, like things like Bayloral and there's that intestinal detox and things like that, carrot seed on the abdomen. Um, but I would say if there's a lot of tension in the gut already, it probably isn't going to move the lymph like enough. Like I
Hmm.
take the tension out, the lymph will probably start moving on its own. But if it doesn't, then you could follow up like after, maybe a few weeks or a month of treating that. And, you know, there is the appearance from time to time, but we want to like just break the cycle of it if we can,
Hmm.
if we
Yeah, I mean,
can.
gut tension probably gonna cause 10 other things later. So
Yeah, yeah,
let's get the
yeah,
tension out.
yeah. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And then
And if you take the tension out of his gut, it will also reduce anxiety. It will reduce, you know, tension in his body, tension in his jaws. It can do other things as well.
yeah. And then I have this bottle of basil clove I'd love to use for something. Would that also help the tension that you're talking
Tension in the
about?
gut, yeah. Basil clove is actually good for that. And basil clove is also good for taking tension out of the respiratory tract. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I have that big bottle of geranium spray. Like, could he take the basil clove internally and then spray the geranium, or is it just better to do geranium
You
internally?
could try. Yeah, you could try. If you're going to do that, have him take the basil clove internally and spray his abdomen, like where it hits the skin, and see if that would work. I mean, usually when I treat that, I have them take the geranium internally.
Okay.
But,
I'll look for a bottle. I might have one too.
yeah, like I mean, I haven't included it in a bunch of classes, but it's, you might have some laying around somewhere.
Okay.
But if not, you could start with that and just see what happens there. Yeah.
Yeah, Awesome. His vocal cords I want to treat. I've been doing I think it was Angelica. I have the body tonic. So I've been doing that, and he's had like a really raspy voice like forever. I haven't noticed a big change. Is there something secondary I can combine with that? And I'll keep doing the Angelica too.
Do you have like the plant teacher's kit? Have him inhale the
Oh,
angelica.
inhale Angelica. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And also that helped my sleep, which you had me put on the back between the Mingmen and back solar.
Well, good.
Really helped to sleep.
Yeah,
So
good.
whatever that was, it helped. So yeah. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And a question in chat. I want to give black cumin and galbanum to my mother. She takes medication for her thyroid and high blood pressure and salt pills for low sodium. Could there be adverse reactions with those medications?
Not for either of those. Or none of those medications would have an issue. Mhm.
Thank you. I think that's it for tonight.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we're going to do the prayer, petition, blessing here in just a couple of minutes. And we are going to spend a little extra time on the conflict with Israel, Iran, US, Qatar, that whole situation, as well as Russia and Ukraine. And so join us if you can. Just be about 15 minutes or something, but join us if you can. And if not, we'll be addressing it again tomorrow. We're trying to do it a little bit every day. So, okay, you guys.
do you have a quick second, Greg?
Mhm.
My latest bone scan showed a slight improvement from 4 years ago. Could that be at all related to the work we have been doing?
Bone scan for osteoporosis, or what are we talking about?
Yes.
Have you started like any sort of weight bearing exercise over the last 4 years?
A bit more walking.
Mm. I mean, it's possible that the things that we were doing, but like for bone density, like really low weight bearing exercise is the best thing. I mean, I'd love to say like, oh, I have this magic blend that could, but nothing really replaces that weight bearing exercise. So, walking, like how you get those little weights, like it could just be like a pound or two and you kind of move your arms or, put something around your legs that could improve it as well. And so, I love to say it was the oils, but I would lean a little bit more to the weight bearing exercise. Yeah.
All right, and I am posting here in the chat right now.